From the CNN Center, this is CNN 10, and I'm Carl Azus. Thank you for watching. A major event of World War II occurred 75 years ago this month. January of 1945 was when Nazi Germany's largest concentration camp was liberated. Auschwitz is located in southern Poland, a country that Germany invaded and occupied starting in 1939. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Auschwitz was actually 3 camps. One was a prison, one was for slave labor, and one was a death camp. More than 1,100,000 people were killed at Auschwitz. 90% of them were Jews. The advancing Soviet army found and liberated the camp on January 27th. The Nazis had mostly abandoned it by that time, though thousands of prisoners were left behind. Today, Auschwitz-Birkenau is a memorial and museum. A ceremony to commemorate the camp's liberation was held Thursday in Israel, a nation whose population is more than 74% Jewish. Dozens of world leaders and Holocaust survivors gathered in Jerusalem this week for the World Holocaust Forum. In his opening remarks, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin asked them to make sure the Holocaust and the destruction of World War II would never be repeated. That's a major theme at Yad Vashem, Israel's National Holocaust Remembrance site, where Sarah Seidner filed this report.
Yad Vashem comes from the book of Isaiah, and it's really an idiom, and the idiom means a permanent memorial. This museum cuts into the mountain, and if you look at it, it looks something like a scar in the mountain of remembrance. And I think that's what the Holocaust really is in our world. It's this thing, and we're many years afterwards, but we remain with a sort of a scar.
You know, it's a bit shocking as you walk in and you see these massive swastikas.
Yeah, I think
Nazi
it is,
flags.
But again, this is showing you something about what this period is. I mean, you can't just enter it like you enter a swimming pool slowly. You kind of dive into the period.
Where are these bricks from?
Well, this is a recreation of a street called Leszno Street, which was the main artery in the ghetto, Warsaw Ghetto, the biggest of the ghettos. And these are actual bricks that were used in the streets of Warsaw, along with the tram line that was there.
What do you want people to feel when they start walking into the ghetto?
We want them to have a small feeling, maybe, of what crowdedness is, and when they see the photos around, understand something about the suffering, because if you see the photos around you, you see tremendous suffering, especially of children. We're talking about people. Knowing their names is important. When you see their faces, you understand even more that we're talking about not 6 million somethings. We're talking about 6 million human beings, each with a family, with a background, with something about them that's very human. The suitcases are left with names and addresses and information. Again, it's a personal thing. Who doesn't understand traveling with a suitcase? So they're heart-rendering, these things. When you look at the items and you tie them to the story, you don't need to show photographs of atrocities to understand an atrocity. Things were taken from them again, and shoes. And shoes, okay, shoes look innocuous. What are shoes? But understand whose shoes these were and what happened to the owners of these shoes, and you begin to get something about a feeling of amount, of quantity, of everything that's going on here.
You can touch things here.
Yes.
You can experience things in a different way. What is this?
Well, look in the photograph. This is a camp called Flossenburg, where people were working in hard labor digging out stones, and they were filling carts, right? And this is one of the carts.
There are 1,000 points of proof, 1,000 things that you can experience here to show you a little bit, just a tad of what life was like.
Ultimately, we want people to understand that the Holocaust was caused by people. It wasn't a cosmic event, and it wasn't monsters. It was human beings who were motivated by ideas more than anything else, and they brought about this Holocaust, which means we need to understand what those ideas were, what was motivating them, what brought them into this, because ultimately we want to learn from the Holocaust, from other genocides. How do we go about preventing anything like this from happening to anyone anywhere else?
Our next story this Friday, the World Health Organization, part of the United Nations, says the Wuhan coronavirus is not yet a public health emergency of international concern. That's an official term the agency uses for extraordinary outbreaks like those of the Ebola or Zika viruses. The WHO says it's continuing to keep a close eye on the Wuhan virus outbreak. Meantime, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control is recommending that Americans who don't need to go to Wuhan should avoid the city. And it recommends that anyone who's traveled to China within the past 2 weeks and has a fever, cough, or trouble breathing should immediately get medical care and avoid other people. The disease is named for the city in China where it was first identified. Wuhan has a population of 11 million, and it's now on partial lockdown with a lot of its transportation shut down. As Chinese officials rush to try to contain the outbreak, the travel plans of millions have been impacted because the Chinese New Year begins on Saturday, the most important festival in the world's most populated country. Major celebrations in Beijing, 650 miles north of Wuhan, have been canceled, and with suspected cases of the virus popping up in several other countries, large airports are increasing health screenings and quarantine plans.
A rushed checkout, sparked by a 3 a.m. phone call. We headed to the train station as soon as we got word. The city of Wuhan, China, essentially going on lockdown. Officials set a deadline for 10 o'clock Thursday morning. All public transportation, including airports, highways, and train stations, to halt service out of the city. A drastic effort to contain the spreading and deadly coronavirus. As we arrived, crowds already lined up for tickets, stretching out the door.
This gives you an idea of how seriously people are taking this idea to leave Wuhan and get out before public transportation is strictly limited. We've noticed a good number of people rushing to this train station. Interesting to note, this railway station is located just a few blocks away from the seafood market, the epicenter, according to health officials, of this virus.
That market's been shut down for weeks, guarded by security and police. Without special permission, no one in, so as to prevent any potential exposure from getting out. Passing through rail security, thermal detectors monitor for possible fevers. Inside, some passengers feeling panicked.
In such a short time, the number of cases has doubled several times.
Others feeling it's all been a bit overhyped.
For me, in Wuhan, I haven't felt that kind of tension or panic at all. I think people are okay. People are getting on with eating, drinking, and living.
But she's leaving nonetheless. And during the Spring Festival, in which families are supposed to be together, some are making the difficult choice to be apart, sending their young children outside the city limits while they stay to face the unknowns back home.
$216 footballs for one game. That's how many are being made by Wilson, the company that's provided Super Bowl footballs since 1941. In its factory in Ohio, Wilson picks the leather, cuts the leather, stamps the leather, stitches up the balls, and then they're laced like shoes and sent to Super Bowl LIV, also known as Super Bowl 54, with 108 of them going to the Chiefs and 108 going to the 49ers. So that's the pig skinny on how they're made before the athletes have a ball with how they're played. Now some will get frayed and some will fade or get kicked, dropped, or sprayed with Gatorade. But that's the life of a Super Bowl. They lose or win some. The rest is elementary, my dear Wilson. Okay, enough of that. We hope to see you subscribe and comment at youtube.com/CNN10 because that's what LPS Oakland High School did from Oakland, California, where Fridays are awesome. I'm Carl Azus.